On Friday night, an incident happened in Kitezi where we saw the rubbish slide right on people's houses and killing over up to 21 people, as per the results that were released by the Uganda police force. And joining me to discuss the crisis of waste management in this country, but with a keen focus on the Kitezi incident, is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen who will help us put perspective to this conversation. I believe if you religiously follow the inter-university debates, but also other youth shows on Civic Space TV, you'll see familiar faces. So in no particular order, I'll just let them introduce themselves and then we delve straight into the conversation. So I'll begin from my immediate right to my extreme right, and then we can dive straight into the conversation. You're most welcome.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Kahinju Debrah Yeson from Kyambogo University. I'm glad to be here.
Very happy to have you, Deborah, and looking forward to having an interesting conversation. Sir.
Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Augustine Olowo. I am a very good friend of Denise here in climate change activism. I am also a civil rights activist with Center for Constitutional Governance here, but I also come from Kampala University, where I am in charge of innovation and creativity there, entrepreneurship and the like. I am a 3-0 support person, and that means to emphasize that we need to create a world with minimum waste or zero waste drag. And as an ambassador for peace, of course, this topic touches exactly in what we do. I am glad to be back here.
Happy to have you, and we're looking forward to getting those insights and then unpacking the conversation. The lady with very many titles. I don't know which one you're choosing today.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Denise Ayebare. I am a climate activist. I think I can't add more to that given today's topic, and definitely. I'm a student at Makerere University.
Definitely, I knew you were going to go with climate activism. But nonetheless, we love you so much and we're looking forward to getting your insights. Isaac, or I usually call him Prince Isaac. So.
Good afternoon, dear viewers. My name is Arinda Isaac, Arinda Isaac Rugambwa, from Uganda Christian University. Lawyer, business analyst, LLM candidate. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you. We're looking forward to obviously having an interesting conversation with you. Let me start with the climate activist. Denise Ayebare. The conversation around waste management is something that is crucial. But even before we go to the waste management, we have been receiving torrential rainfall that has been falling and unprecedented rains, really. From nowhere, you just see the clouds change and rains pour. And that alone saw the incident in Kitezi. The rubbish in Kitezi has been there ever since 1997. That's when they started accumulating it. And there have been outcries by the community around Wakiso there about that. But 20 years down the road, after all the numerous outcries about the lump sum of rubbish in Kitezi, fell to deaf ears until we saw it fall on people's houses and claim a toll of 21 lives, and we're still counting. So put perspective to that conversation, Denise.
All right. Thank you so much, Drake. So just to begin with, the climate crisis itself is something that we are dealing with in the 21st century, and it's something that over the decades has become so serious. Because when you look at probably the past decade, the same rainfall we're receiving is not the same. We have unprecedented rainfall patterns. You're going to look at how the drought is hitting very many areas, not only in Uganda, but the entire African continent and the entire world. So when you look at this climate crisis, it's more of how do people adapt and how do we mitigate these effects. But also, we can't talk about the climate crisis without talking about the causes, and that's where maybe waste management also comes in. Over the years, waste management has been a discussion in very many countries, not only Uganda, not only other countries in the global south, but also in the global north. As other countries are making money out of their waste, I could give you an example. Singapore uses rubbish actually to process electricity. Most of their electricity comes from their waste management. But in Uganda, that's why we have not waste management, having innovative ideas, or even when we try, our governments are not as supportive as other governments are. Because when you look at the Kitezi landfill, and ever since 1996 when it was set up, by 2015, its capacity was overdue. And I think the Lord Mayor by that time said that, you know what, we need to do away with expanding the landfills. We need to make sure that we have where we're going to create other waste management practices. And the government did not pay attention. And this is something that has gone overdue, and the capacity has overgrown, and you can imagine how then it would cause such terror as time goes on and down. So I think when you look at all these things in waste management and how it causes most of the diseases, and you look at plastics, every ton of plastic that is in water or food, every food that we eat right now, by 2030 will have an aspect of plastic. Not even just waste, but plastic in every food that we eat. And you see how then dangerous that becomes. As other countries are converting plastics to fuel, or even waste to fuel, we are still struggling with dumping it, or how to make sure that we, even before we go into innovation and creativity, how do we manage our waste as a country? And these are things that are very problematic, but are also causing the climate crisis. And I could give examples of other landfills from years back that have continuously failed. When you look at also Mexico, I think in 2016 had the same problem. You look at Guatemala and all these other Sri Lanka, they have also had same incidents, but I don't think it is as bad as what happened in Uganda, because when you look at the death toll, it's very problematic, and these are things that we need to discuss. Not necessarily when you say, the report from the president was that who allowed these individuals to settle in a hazardous area, not even just piling on people, it could cause health issues. I think it becomes a very problematic response, yeah? Because if you say Kitezi landfill, its capacity is overdue and it can no longer take in any other waste, and for the next 10 years, you're still putting waste in that. So it accumulates to people's homes, even those who are not staying close to it, now start staying close to it. Why? Because its capacity is overdue and it has to expand. So you see that the responses we get to such issues shouldn't be about adaptation, because people can't adapt to waste management, people can't adapt to issues that come with it. So how do you mitigate these issues even before they happen? And that's a discussion we necessarily need to have. How do we mitigate waste? How do we manage our waste as a country? And that's where circular economy within the climate change aspect comes in, innovation. How do I make money out of waste, and all these things?
All right, we shall get to the innovation part, but let me just bring the 3-0 activist as well. And I'm quite aware, and congratulations upon your recent appointment as the country representative for the Commonwealth. That's a very good achievement. And as a peace ambassador and as the country rep, conversations around peace in relation to environment is very crucial. You understand that once people settle around, for example, the communities in Kitezi who have lost their lives in an incident that could have been mitigated 20 years down the road, or even 15 years down the road, we wouldn't have lost 21 lives. Among the people that have lost their lives, was a child, and we're still waiting for more people or more bodies to be recovered. Now, as an advocate for peace, and as someone who also advocates for a cleaner environment, we'd just like to pick your perspective and insights to the incident.
Okay, first of all, Drake, for me, I come from a place where we've lost 6 people in that incident. So we expect that we've lost 6 people in that incident. There is a family of 7 that stayed around Kitezi, and they are from Tororo, where I come from. Now, the only survivor in that home is a young girl who did not get back home on Friday. She decided to go to the auntie's place. Now, that's the girl that has survived, senior 1 girl. So I want to first of all commiserate with all those that have lost loved ones, those that have been discovered, and those that authorities are still trying to recover. And also, of course, there are those that will not be recovered because of the nature of the place and the waste that there is. But my perspective on management of waste, like Denise has said, is to the extent that, first of all, these are not new things. These are not things that found us without knowledge. There were warning signs. If you've interacted with Kitezi for a bit of time, you know that there is a time the residents there complained of water coming from what now they would call a rock. So it was simply a matter of time. I want to portion blame on our government like Denise does, but I also want to portion a lot of blame on those that went closest to the landfill. Because in my study of landfills and in my teaching of how waste is managed, especially electronic waste, you discover that there is supposed to be a considerable gap, distance between where you're disposing of this rubbish to where settlements actually take place. But what I discovered along the way is that for Kitezi especially, for the last over 30 years, we've dumped rubbish there. Now, this, like Denise said, what we were supposed to have actually stopped dumping rubbish there in 2010. What government did was to buy an extra portion of land to still take in more rubbish, and that's how we pushed ourselves up to 2015. Now, even after 2015, we are speaking about 2024. One, government has identified a lot of places to dump rubbish. On Kayunga Road, there is a landfill I know on Entebbe Road, and so on and so forth. Now, our problem is that we were not proactive to the extent that we made these other landfills operational. So the delay in operationalizing these landfills is actually what has led us to where we are today. But also, most importantly, the number of people that actually were deriving livelihoods from that place actually speaks volumes to what actually happened. Because you see, there are claims that there are people that were actually using that place to generate some form of substance from there. But also we have our innocent brothers and sisters who actually would go there to pick bottles, pick polythene, and all these other things, maybe for the purpose of recycling or actually coming up with new products. So now all those are rumored to have been covered by this unfortunate incident. That means with the death toll of this Kitezi thing is actually bigger than what meets our eye. I've just told you that in my Tororo alone, the family that I know that I've interacted with lost 6 people. As I speak today, they have only recovered 1. And the statistics that you speak very well of has that 1 person. We don't know where the other 5 are. So, on a perspective of peace and peace building, I think that there are a number of factors that affect how well we live with others in communities that we live in. And one of the things is about the environment that Denise is so passionate about. If you are, the first sign of having peace within you is having a clean and secure environment.
Definitely. And
when you look at Kitezi for the last 30 years, it is easy to assume that first of all, this place has been a stench of sort. Maybe the whole
just
place. Just
kilometers away
yes.
Before you reach the place. The
and you see, and a few meters from the landfill were people's homes. You saw when the excavators went there, they had to first break people's homes before they could access the landfill. And all these speak to how well these people have suffered. You know, there is suffering well also. How well these people have suffered for the last so many years. Now, what is maybe the action points that we could take? Because you see, the government came up and said, now, after this incident, we want you to be at least 200 meters away.
Just before we go to the action point, we shall get to that on a much later point. Let me just bring in Isaac, then I come to Debrah here. Isaac, governance. That's an issue that we face in this country. We have a government that oftentimes reacts after an incident has occurred. The president probes, he has requested the IGG to probe the incident after we have lost close to 21 lives and still counting. What's the issue with our government? That we only react after an incident has occurred, not before the incident happens.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. You ask a very important question. It is sad that we're actually having this conversation. We're talking about 21 lives. I will start from a book that I'm reading. It's Freshwater for Flowers by Valerie Perrin. She says, you cannot tell a mother who has lost a child to go and buy dolls in the market. You can't, you know. The previous speakers have contextualized waste management, the history of Kitezi and all. It is very true. 4.1 billion is allocated to manage that place. In every budget, that money is put there. But firstly, Kitezi is not a landfill. Uganda doesn't have a landfill. Kitezi is a dumping site. It's a dumping site. We do not have a landfill. We do not have any laws or anything existing for waste management. It's not that we have not thought about it. She traced it from 1995. Yeah, when you bring it back closer, you can look at the demographics from 95, 96, 2000, 2001, 2015. It's a problem that has been there. When you look at KCC and NEMA, one of the reports by Elias Rukwago, he says that they are aware. They are aware. They bought 136 acres of land, Dundu, and they presented a report and said, this is where I want to construct. But what is more alarming is when they presented that up to today, 2015, nothing has been done. Yeah. When that report was presented, that time they were asking for 190 billion to construct a state-of-art waste management plant. Up to today, there's nothing. So losing 21 people and then government coming to tell citizens that you should stay 100 meters away from the dumping site. It's as if we do not know how bad the place has been. It's as if we have seen it today. It's not like we are living in a country where we can't walk, you can't, government is just, in that report, when you read it by Chinobiri, actually he says that they presented a report to the president and he refused. Even they had development partners. They were offering at 60%, if I remember very well. So it is, the problem with our government is until something has come to the worst, it is when they remember. Often that report was 8 to 10 cents per development because they wanted to generate power from that entire whatever garbage. That's the circular economy kind of thing that they were trying to look at. And the president did not assent to it. And here we are now. The same person telling us. Yes, here we are now discussing on how people can stay 100 meters away from the whatever. It is a sad thing in this country. You cannot govern a country that you do not oversee, you do not overlook, you don't even know what is happening. Things just happen and then you wake up and you want to address the nation. But it is a sad story.
You're kada. And you have principles in the party that govern you. And if I may ask, are those principles followed? Because honestly, as what people normally say, as a layman, we don't see those principles being followed.
Mr. Jake, I remember the very first show I had here. I was very keen, and it was with you. And I told you I'm a man of my word. I will call a spade a spade. That's who I am. So I will not fail. I will not. It's our government. It's not my government. I'm not in authority. I'm not in power. I am a citizen of this country, and I speak about issues that are very pertinent to this country. So if people are dying, I cannot keep quiet when people are dying. When our boys in Somalia are fighting under AMISOM, still I'll come here and tell if there is anything to talk about, and I'll tell maybe we made the wrong choice in partnering with ABC, and I will still talk about it. That is what a citizen does. You know very well the Constitution.
All right, let's just hang it there. Let me bring in David. Understanding the situation, and women have lost their lives, children have lost their lives, and in the context of climate, those are the most vulnerable people. And having this conversation, putting it in perspective of waste management, it doesn't be far away from the conversation of climate change, because waste is among the things that definitely lead or cause or have an effect in the way the environment reacts. But then back to the issue, as I was saying, women and children are among the people who are most vulnerable when it comes to climate adaptation, mitigation, or whichever issue to do with climate change. Just want to pick your insights on perspective of women and children. Where have we gone wrong as a country? Have we really moved far back that we have forgotten the most vulnerable in our society?
Okay, thank you very much. This is quite an interesting topic. When it comes to women and children, okay, basically on women, we know like from home, it's always maybe the women who are in charge of cleanliness, waste management, all that. And even actually during census, they were asking us these questions, how do you manage your waste? So I feel at home level, mothers, women they have tried because I know I'll clean my place, do this and this. But then it's alarming that as you're trying at the ground level, what is happening up there is alarming, because that rubbish didn't fall on those people because they didn't clean. They are people who are just near a dumping site. And I believe that is how it goes back to our government. Sometimes we really want to defend our government, but it becomes very hard. Reason being, you are in government, there is a ministry in charge of these. Funds have been allocated, these people are aware. They know that these these dumping sites, the landfills, however we may call them, they also have a lifespan. So if you know this can only accommodate rubbish for, say, 15 years, then the 15 years elapse, you add more 5 years, and then you still have to wait for more 10 years. That shows that there is a lot of reluctancy. You're not taking matters serious, not until something happens. And that is very unfortunate that we have to wait for something to go wrong and then act at the end of the day, because you're not solving anything. The money has been allocated. You're aware that this is why you're dumping rubbish for people. So you've started dumping rubbish there since 1996. And over the years, Uganda's population has been growing. Everyone knows, the people in power know, the ministries know. But then what does that mean at the end of the day? If the population is increasing, it means that even the waste is increasing. So at the end of the day, you realize that even after Kitezi being full to capacity, they still have been bringing in more rubbish, approximately 1,500 tons on a daily basis. So what means then is that this rubbish will now be the one encroaching people's homes. It's not the mothers, it's not the people who are encroaching, bringing themselves closer to the rubbish. The rubbish is actually coming closer to them. So at the end of the day, we just need to question ourselves. What are our leaders doing? Is this something important? Like we say, cleanliness is key, because there are so many health-related problems that come out of that. Talk about the little children there. You see, because people are very vulnerable, the children themselves. When you go to Kitezi, you realize that even little children of about 10 years are there collecting empty bottles. They're like in those dirty places, they have no shoes. They have mothers, yes, but you find it's just a situation that is not good. By the time a child decides to go pick those bottles for maybe how many shillings they'll get, it means that the situation is not good back home. So then we're not supposed to blame their mothers like, oh, why is your child out there? Yeah. It goes back to the government. You're in charge of this place, so you should be knowing that, oh, there are children there, they're not supposed to be there. Or you should know that, oh, because it's full, it's now encroaching people's places, can we maybe shift the people? Or can we get, Mr. Isaac said they already got new places. You got them, why are you not using them? Is it the transport? Like, where is the problem? At the end of the day, we try to look for the problem, and you really can't find it, because it becomes more problematic when you provide a solution for something, and then the solution itself ends up being a problem. So we have to accept that at the end of the day, women and children are vulnerable in this. Though we can't blame them necessarily, because they're trying. We see women coming up day in, day out, trying to. We have Denise, she's a climate activist, They are there, they are trying so hard, but however hard they try, if the government, if our leaders are not doing what they're supposed to do, then all this effort will be now.
Definitely, that's spot on. Have you guys taken time when you're scrolling in the internet, or if you ask your European friends, the depiction they have of Africa, they tell you they see a kid running with those things, or picking bottles, and that's the picture that just come in my mind right now when just talking about children collecting bottles in Kitezi. Now just imagine that scene. I was reading an article by BBC, and you just see those are the photos that we have, and that's the depiction we have. And our country say, and our government say, we're not patriotic enough, we don't care about our country. I don't want to go to the conversation today, but it's going to come nonetheless. Denise, back to you. Climate mobility. With this incident, the government is definitely going to forcefully move people away from there. And we do not know where these people are going to be allocated to. Because oftentimes when the government says they push away from there because they say it's a no-go zone for people after this incident has occurred, they'll apply for us, and after some months, the scene will go away. We saw what happened at the swamp. This is what happened with the swamps. Like just made some rounds of some media rounds, and it's all quiet. We still see some petrol stations still standing tall. Yeah, it's back to normal business. But climate mobility, Denise, people who are going to be affected from this, people who have to move from a place that maybe they have established their livelihoods in. He mentioned of a family that he knows from Tororo. You may find this is a livelihood that has stayed there for over 20 years, 30 years, already taking care of the next generation, because have perished, and the people that now have to move away from where they knew as home. That's a conversation that climate change still brings to us as well. And the Kitezi incident vividly puts that to the eye. Put perspective to that.
All right. So, Drake, the more we discuss these issues, the more I realize the governance issues, and
Definitely.
countries that have proper governance and leadership usually do not face the same problems. And that's why I usually say I love my country, but I'm ashamed of my government. But putting context to climate mobility, see, climate mobility necessarily means that individuals, even in that country, are just being internally displaced because of the climate crisis. Even before we go out of the borders and say maybe those coming into Uganda from South Sudan because of the heat, or DR Congo because of anything, or floods from different countries. And by 2050, you have over 250 million within the region of East Africa, either being internally displaced or refugees due to the climate crisis. And that's how sad it is, because when you come and you see the incident, even at Kitezi landfill, and you see how it has occurred, these are individuals who necessarily need to be relocated. And why? Because of the miscalculation of the government of the original NRA, because they have not provided solutions from the beginning. And that's why I usually say, with waste management, you look at mitigation, you don't look at adaptation. And that talks to very many other things, because individuals within countries like Uganda is the 12th vulnerable country to the climate change. By 2030, our GDP will mostly go into adaptation and mitigation of the climate crisis. And it's something that as a country we don't take serious, because when you look at other countries, how they're embracing the climate crisis, its urgency and all these things, we just look at them as headlines. When you look at Karamoja, the drought has hit them. You look at Bududa, you look at the landslides in Kasese, and now we are talking about waste management. They're usually just headlines. They are things we study in textbooks. I don't think, minus what you studied in P6 or what you had when you were in senior 4, that Kasese landslides, I don't think there is any feasible solution that the government has put in place. Why? We leave them as textbook examples, we leave them as headlines, and we just want to use them as statistics. Yet, most of these statistics have a face to them. There are families out there that need to be displaced even more than thrice. Because if you talk of Tororo, they probably moved for a better living, right? Yeah. Where they are now, they have to be displaced again. Let me tell you, there is nothing as hard as beginning a new life in a place you're not familiar to. You have no relative, you have no business there, you don't have anyone to give you anything. You're just beginning, let's say it's like a breakup and you have to start another emotional building with another person. That's how hard it is, and that's a toll it takes on people, not only physically but emotionally, because your identity is erased, because now you're coming in a new place, new culture, you have to adapt. And these are all things that the climate crisis is causing, but not just the climate crisis to generalize. And the issues that can be stopped, the issues that can be mitigated, but we put little or no field to them. Because I could tell you, it doesn't care whether you're rich, or even the climate crisis doesn't care for your nationality, whatever passport you hold, whatever border you come from, it's going to hit you the way it hits other people. When the rainfall comes and it sweeps away as many people as possible, it doesn't care who you are. And when we talk about climate change, I know there are very many people who are deniers out there, and I think it's very problematic when we're having a lot of issues. Our agricultural output is low, and now we're having discussions about GMOs as a country that has always had organic food. When we talk about waste management, which is very crucial. Of recent, in Canada, they held the INC4 to discuss the plastic treaty, which is going to be upheld globally. But we cannot uphold a treaty globally when even nationally, when we have national determined contributions, we have NAPS, we have the Climate Change Act, we have different frameworks that put into context what NEMA is supposed to do, Ministry of Water is supposed to do. But these are things we have failed to uphold. You have a budget saying that it's going to NDCs. You have a budget saying it's going to adaptation. We are the 12th vulnerable. But they're not all being put into context and we're not feeling them. I could say, how many people in Uganda probably know about climate change? I could say just that. How many people know that it's climate change or waste management could potentially lead to very many other diseases, the pollution that comes with it, the health hazards that comes with it? Because just being in Kitezi, I think you even see Red Cross itself that is supposed to be helping out. It can't get itself. And that's why Mr. President asked SFC to come and sort of work on these individuals.
Can you
Because
imagine
you imagine
an
how?
entity like SFC? It doesn't make it just runs back to the issue of governance. Like,
Exactly.
where are institutions like NEMA? Where are institutions like the Ministry of Water? And like, where are they? They don't have the capacity. Where are they?
And that's the thing. And I'm saying that climate change is something that as a country have not embraced and taken serious, yet our GDP by 2030 would most probably be hit by it. Because most of the money even right now goes into disaster reduction, preparedness. We wait for something to happen, as they say, and then we want to take action. Yet you have early warning systems. I think ever since 2015, you're talking about Kitezi landfill. Its capacity is overdue. We need to look for alternatives. And until something happens, that's when you want to do something. So imagine all that emergency funds that have to go into that from a certain, maybe probably from a certain budget of health or anything that was not planned, very unplanned government. So you see that these problems, even when we talk about climate mobility, how people are going to be internally displaced, minus the emotional toll, we need to make sure we mitigate something before it happens. Because if I could say, as a child that stays there, you don't know, you don't have roots, you don't have a sense of belonging, you don't have identity, you don't have a family, you don't have anything that is going to help you to take care of yourself. And you just have to adapt to a new culture to begin from there. And where you go, you're not even certain, it's not a climate crisis hotspot, meaning it's not prone to the climate crisis effects.
Yeah.
You could probably, because you don't have money to move into Munyonyo or Ntinda or where you have to settle for the least because you're already vulnerable. And maybe when it rains again, it's going to be flooded, and where are you going to settle? So you find that individuals that are internally displaced still are settling in what I could call climate effect hotspots, where you find it's very easy, those areas are still prone to the climate crisis. If you're displaced the first time, the second, the third, you're still going to be displaced the next time. And these are things that we need to come to terms with and consider all the effects of the climate crisis and climate crisis urgent. Yeah.
All right. Augustine, waste management. I'm still going to bring that up. When you take your time, when you're taking the route going to Gayaza, when you reach Kahinju,
No,
yeah.
you don't want to go there.
When you reach Kahinju, and every morning when I'm passing, going maybe taking my other business at the side, I see some, usually 2, 3, in that there is that drainage, or is cleaning it and putting the rubbish there, but that rubbish is never removed. Yeah, it's outside on the road that connects to the bypass and takes you to the express. And the stench, business is happening as usual. Yeah, even amidst the stench, business is happening as usual. Potential hotspot for cholera. Yeah, potential hotspot for other diseases that we even do not know. Now, speaking of waste management, Kahinju is just one example I've given you. Just go to downtown around Nakasero Market. Yeah, Nakasero Market in the evening hours when it rains, and you just see what happens there. It's alarming. Even as individuals, when you go to those bufundas, and you see how people manage waste, still alarming. But also the issue of human waste, slums, an aspect that our government has failed in terms of urban planning, slums. So I just want you to, I don't know how you're going to handle it. Speak to the argument, speak to the issue of waste management in our marketplaces, but then bring it down to slums, relating it to urban planning.
Thank you, Drake. As you spoke, and you mentioned human waste. I remembered that, you see, there's a time when your toilet gets filled up at home or in the village. And then there is nature takes its course. And that's how I've been looking at this whole situation of Kitezi. That's the same thing that happens in our markets. You see, I want the people out there to first of all know that whether an egg falls on a coconut or a coconut falls on an egg, it is the egg that suffers. Now that's a popular saying by my friend Johnson Adejomobi of Nigeria, with whom we enjoyed the early days of the Hope Initiative clubs in 2013, 12, 14 and around there.
Yeah.
The people out there should know that when you throw rubbish close to you, you do it today, the following day, and for a month. Whether government comes and picks up that rubbish or it doesn't, the effect is actually felt by you. And therefore, we should take responsibility of what we do. For me, the whole thing starts from what mindset do I have. Drake, you've moved in this country, and sometimes when you're, for example, in a taxi or bus, or even when you're moving on foot, you see someone takes water, and without thinking about what it does to the people out there, it throws a bottle.
What irritates me most, someone is eating in a taxi, someone eats in a taxi, open, and it's normal. And it's even people are driving Porsche cars, they eat, you dump, and it's sad.
There's a time I was driving from Chireka through to Chaluaja. A lady threw a banana peeling off, is it Bogoya or something like that, from a taxi window. I just went and parked right in front of them and told her, you've thrown something, kindly get out and pick. And so we caused a little bit of jam. But the lady was kind enough to acknowledge that she actually made a mistake. So, as humans, as Ugandans, dear people of God, let us go back to our divine callings. Let us start to realize that, like the four-way test or toast of Rotary and Interact and Rotaract, what we do, we should always think about their effect on other people. Because you see, that same person that throws rubbish, that place you were actually referring to in Kalerwe, for me, I actually thought that's a small river. You come and see things flying, birds, you see people who have thrown peelings from pineapples, and then you're like, do we have leadership in this country?
And that's the road that takes you
to the
airport.
Do we actually have leadership? Even before we talk about the leadership at, do we have leadership in these markets? Do we have leadership in these youth spaces? Because sometimes a young man tells you, and then you're like, okay. But even before we go into slums, because you see slums is, for me, I would treat slums as over-exaggerating. Let's just go back to our homes. How do we manage our waste, what we call kasasiro? Me, I think that the biggest problem that waste management has in this country is actually government giving out the responsibility of picking and disposing of waste to the private people. How I wish government takes up this initiative on its own. And we say when I find rubbish on a street in Kampala, I blame KCCA. Because you see now, it is easy to blame Nabugabo Abdil and so on, and with all the challenges that we have. But if this thing was done by KCCA, where a majority of the lawmakers in KCCA are actually opposition, okay? For me, it would be easy for me to throw a stone at the leadership of KCCA, and because the other day, actually, the executive director of KCCA was like, I didn't know this. She was like, okay, but now that this has happened, 200 meters, I said, okay, no solution. And that's why I agree with Denise and others who were born after 1997, that they need to take up leadership of this country, okay? Without a leader, without a tribe, without anything. They just go and, someone said, no wife, no children. So, it speaks to, first, our mindset. What is it that we hold dear to our minds and our lives? Because it is, there is something called, in the string of responsibility, it is after you've taken a bottle of water at home, that you throw it under your bed in your hostels, in the universities and schools. You throw it under your bed. After some time, the bottles will become many and overpower you. You will push them to your compound, and from the compound, water maybe will come. When it rains, like we've had a lot of rain one of these days, water will pick it from home, maybe, and it draws it to somewhere. Okay, now, the spillover effect is felt right from your room, right from your table, your dining table, to the entire world. Speaking about just leaving Kitezi alone, we have wetlands in this country. And if you moved around Lake Victoria in your primary school days, you have a different demarcation of where Lake Victoria stopped. Okay? Just move at any bank of the lake. Now, there are places I went to around Lake Victoria 10 years ago, but when you go back there now, someone has put up a structure. Because what do they use? It is waste. They come and dump a lot of things there, and then there are those that divert their sewage into the lake, and then you're like, But I want to assure those people that are listening to us this afternoon that, you see, by 2050, we expect that if we continue living in this condition that we are living in, nature will take its course.
It's already doing so.
You will reach a point when you cannot, you can no longer take control of your life. Maybe you cannot move and properly put on a necktie and a suit because of the advanced heat rates. You will be able to sit in your rooms and you're like, what did we do? Your children, it may not be felt by you, but your children's children. So it is only enough that we take responsibility for whatever we do. People have talked about alternatives that government creates. I want to remind you that there is a time the Honorable Sarah Chengo Pendi was the minister in charge of mineral development, energy, and something like that. I saw a delegation of members of parliament, technocrats. They carried themselves and went to the Netherlands. What were they talking about? They had gone there to do a study on how we can convert Kitezi, the waste in Kitezi, into electricity. 10 years down the road, all they can do is a tweet about what they went to do in the Netherlands. Where is value for money when some of these policymakers travel out of this country for what they call feasibility study? When do they discuss these things that they have gotten, these good things that they have gotten from where they have come from? Debbie here has talked about the young people, talked about women. I want to talk about the young people of this country. When has government ever thought about having an interface with the young people on alternative policies that we can bring? Because you see, Denise here has researched, has traveled the world, as a climate change activist, has seen these things. When does government decide to create a platform to listen to the Denise of this world, to listen to me of this world, to listen to you? Because we have a big stake in the affairs of this country. And if only they could, because you see, Denise can offer her expertise at no cost, without feasibility study, without this and the other. As an activist at that level, at least. You see? When do we have such a platform that brings the young people to provide alternative policies? And for me, that is what I will be looking at going forward.
All right, let me just bring Debbie, then I come back. Good focusing on the governance question when I come back. Debbie, individual responsibility. That as everyone, we need to be accountable for our actions. If you've had the opportunity to just go to a neighboring country, Rwanda, and just, I'm picking Rwanda as a benchmark in terms of cleanliness, just cleanliness, you will be wowed. Come to our Uganda, a country that had, first of all, the laws that we enacted in 2007 to do with the Buberas and all. We are the first to have that. Rwanda took a replica of our law into their country and implemented it. What we did have the law to today, we even go ahead and amend it. But even with the amended version, we are still the same. Yeah, individual responsibility. I will place the issue of policymakers and government on him. But individuals, individuals, what can we do as individuals? Because it looks like the virus has eaten up all Ugandans. People do not have that sense of, in environmental terms, they say that ecocentric feeling to love the environment.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, we could actually say we should blame this to individuals or at individual level, but not entirely.
Yeah.
For example, you give us an example of Rwanda. Rwanda has people, I know they are, at some point they're also as stubborn as Ugandans can get, but ask yourself, why did Rwandans adhere to that? And why did Ugandans not? Do you think like we're so stubborn or something? We could be, yeah, but then still it goes back to government. You're not going to put a law, I break it, you do nothing, and then you expect me to, come on, I'm not going to, I'm not an angel. We're not going to change out of the blue. So it still goes back to our leaders. By the time they put these laws, they know that there is need for them, people need them. And it is still their responsibility to make sure that indeed people adhere to this. We've heard about the polythene bag things. Some time back, there was a rumor that around the time they brought in that law about like banning polythene, there was actually a producer of polythenes who was in the parliament by then. So I think that person was the owner of the factory, something like that. So you are among the people, you want me to stop using something, but it is what you're putting on market. So what is happening at the end of the day? So even if we bring it to individual basis, even the people in government are the individuals. You talk of people driving Porsche cars, shamelessly throwing food things out of their cars. If someone in a Porsche car is doing that, what about me who is walking? You know, so at the end of the day, we all share the blame. And it's really disgusting to see a grown-up person, educated, you're seated in a bus, you buy maybe a piece of meat, then after you throw the thing out of the window, leave alone even the aspect of maybe environment and climate. This thing could actually kill someone. What if you throw a polythene bag and maybe a motorcyclist is coming from behind and it falls on their face? And come on, at the end of the day, you could cause an accident. Sure. So we need to also understand as people, because cleanliness starts with you, from home. It shouldn't only stop from home and maybe your body. You don't have to dress smart and then start, littering the streets wherever you go. I believe people as individuals, yes, they have a role to play, but the reason why we have leaders is because they are also individuals we put in place to direct us. Rwanda has a president, Uganda has a president. Rwanda has other leaders that are directing their people. We have the same. Rwanda has allocated funds for their things and they're working out, but I do not know what happens to our side. Instead of our leaders going to the Netherlands to see what is going there, like exactly, yes, you don't really need to go that far. We can, let's start with the laws. Yeah. Let's make sure they are implemented, and they cannot be implemented if people are breaking them and you're ignoring them.
Quite sad. Just a few weeks back, when young people take it to the streets, take it to the streets, and they say it's not a patriotic move. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's Uganda. Isaac, just quickly, in like 2 minutes, the governance question still looms over our heads, and it's quite sad. It's very sad. Yeah, for all of us here on this panel have had the opportunity at least to travel and see what other countries offer. You get to other countries and you see, and you're like, what has my motherland done wrong that we can't emulate this? We have leaders who travel day in, day out, and they see what other countries offer. But the most unfortunate thing is they can't replicate what they've seen. We have that particular ministry that traveled to the Netherlands to learn how the Dutch are doing it to divert West into electricity. 10 years down the road, anything done? Nothing. The leaders continuously.
The flood.
the leaders continuously travel but fail to implement the ideas they claim they go to benchmark upon. What has befallen the government?
You see, the problem when Drake is asking these questions. I don't know how you see me as a government.
No, but you see, you said, but you see, you offered yourself as an NRM. You are one of the drivers of the bus.
Unless we need to go back to the drawing board and understand the meaning of Kada. But, well, here is the thing. Today's discussion, I love it because it is very liberal. Very liberal. It takes you and I to maintain a very clean environment. Yeah. In as much as we are pushing it so far to the government, but who is the government? This government comes from us. I will take us back to campaigns, and I'll borrow Norbert Mao's story, where he says one of the gentlemen in his story traveled to hell and heaven, and when he reached hell someday, he was like, but hell is nice. Everything is okay. Satan didn't have the horns, the tail was not there. In fact, when he went to heaven, he said, actually, heaven is boring. People are only worshipping. But when he went back, I told him, we are having campaigns. That story means a lot. It means a lot. The leaders that we elect into power, we elect leaders of 1 kg of sugar, a bowl of soap. The other time I saw an MP buying underwear for ladies. These are the people you elect into office. It comes back to what Ugandans, who are you sending to parliament? I saw Daily Monitor the other time saying that the teacher should have a bachelor's.
But
I don't know why.
Let me just quickly interject. You are the same government. You are the same government that has done our political education. You're the same government that has impoverished people. You have not provided any incentive to get people out of poverty. So what do you expect?
Mr. Moderator, if today's discussion is going to be centered on me being yellow, then I think you're getting me wrong. I'm trying to address it from a neutral point of view. I'm not for any political party. I'm addressing from a very neutral point of view.
But we are saying, don't be neutral, be yellow.
No, you see, when you want to, you can
as you said,
be yellow.
it's a liberal conversation.
It's a liberal conversation.
You call it spade and spade.
Yes.
You call it spade and spade.
So please, allow me to deliver my thoughts.
Yeah.
This is the thing, yeah? We are heading into 2026. People are strategizing. And I want to implore Ugandans, we shall keep, you cannot have the same problem and expect a different result. There, you are lying. I do not know if this country has thought about investing so heavily in think tanks. When you read Prisoners of Geography by Tom Marshall, when you read The Aquarian Conspiracy, US, UK, or even China itself, all the superpower countries, I'm writing a paper on that, all the superpower countries have think tanks. We have the Tavistock Research Institute. It oversees each and every policy that is coming into the country. It recruits very young fresh graduates from various universities. And this is how US is able to thrive. When we talk about platforms here, where maybe the Denise can be accommodated, you could be accommodated, where? You talked about wiping away political science. Yes, it was wiped away, but why? They do not want us to see. They don't want us to see. When you try, where is the city of God? Where is this lady? This lady, she was around 27 when she passed on. She was an MP and she was only silenced because of being vocal. We have seen, we know the type of government we are dealing with.
That you're part of.
I'm not part of it. I am a citizen of this country. What I'm trying to say, and these are very crucial points. You do not, firstly, Ugandans must transform. We must upgrade the type of leaders that we elect into power. That is the starting point. If we are not going to do that, then we should not even start, holding some conversation in some spaces. Because at the end of the day, like he said, if you dispose fecal matter in a river, which water you're going to again use? What kind of thinking is that? It comes back to us. It is a two-way. It's not a one-way road this time. No. As much as government has failed, even the citizens of this country have equally failed. When you go to Nakasero market, which feeds over 60-70% of the central people here, you want to vomit. That market operates almost 24/7. I've been there at 3 a.m. at 4 a.m.
I'm just going to hold you there. Let's just quickly go for a short break. Then we'll come back from just where you have stopped. Please stay with us. See you shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that break. Just before we went into the break, Isaac was talking about the governance issue. So I'll just throw the ball back to your court and I'll close that chapter. But it's not entirely though.
Yes, so when it comes to governance, it encompasses all of us. You have a duty to play, I have a duty to play, government has a duty to play. And it starts with our political mandate, the leaders that we choose. KCCA is existing, it's a body statutorily certified. NEMA is, the laws are there, like she said, the policies are there, but implementation, implementation is the challenge that we are facing. But why? There is a budget for managing that dumping site and Kitezi that we are discussing right now. The money is there, but when you ask the people in charge, accountability, no one seems to actually care. He was talking about how the ED of KCCA was, okay, it has happened. Like honestly, you do not think about if it were your family members. You're not that concerned. It's like a by the way. It's like you expected it anyway to happen. I think the greatest mistake we make as leaders is thinking that once we're in these positions of power, we are untouchable. But you are not there forever. We had the Mugabes. We know how disastrous or how much chaos he left in Zimbabwe. We know. But where is he now? There is nothing forever. So to all the leaders who are out there, and I think if I'm to remember well, he also touched on a concept of internally displaced persons and refugees. You cannot imagine how much poor sanitation is in these refugee camps. I'm very, very passionate about the plight of refugees. I think I've done much about that. But you cannot imagine, yes, we are discussing the Kitezi garbage site, but what is actually happening in these camps is just as bad as much. But who is concerned? Until you suffer from jiggers, you cannot understand how much maybe it pains to remove one. You cannot imagine. So I think that's the challenge. We feel like in this country, as long as I'm driving, as long as my kids are studying in a good school, I don't care. But here, 5, 10 years, 30 years down the road, it's your third generation that will suffer, will pay the consequences. When government appropriates money and says, do this study, and the study is brought up and the report is presented and nothing is done, at the end of the day, it is us now, the Gen Zs that are suffering from the mistakes. The previous people that, were supposed to do things right. But it all starts, there's a common saying, maybe people will help me translate it, that the fish starts rotting from
the head.
Please do.
Now we translate to what language?
Well, the meaning is, the top is also
doing so badly. It's so badly because everything starts from there. If the policies above are not direct or spot on, if we are zigzagger like this, then there is no reason as to why maybe the ED KCC would say, oh, sorry, it happened. But when it comes to you, when it comes to that time where it is you in that position, maybe we can understand better from that angle.
All right, Denise. On Monday, we commemorated World Youth Day, and the theme was from cliques to progress. And and we're looking at the innovativeness of young people. That is something that I think it was timely. It was a timely theme, and that being the case, conversations the conversation we're having right now in terms of waste management, innovation is something that could help us, first of all, mitigate, but also adapt to the situation at the same time. So, how can we then translate, or how can the government aid the young people in supporting ideas and innovations to help, culminate the problem?
Drake, you see, Ugandans are some of the most innovative and creative young people I've interacted with. This country has so much potential that if there is gross investment within young people, you're likely going to see a first world country within a few years. I could give you some of the examples that are not supported by government, but individuals are still doing what they can. And now what I think is missing is the government support. In Masaka, there is it's called Eco Bricks. They make boats out of plastic. Boats. They don't make them out of anything, they're made out of plastic. You have people turning plastic into fuel to replace the traditional cooking, kerosene, and all the other that cause indoor pollution. Because I could tell you that indoor pollution in Uganda kills very many babies as compared to anything else. And the climate crisis at this point has displaced more people than one conflict in Africa. And some of the solutions to waste management look like that. But what has the government done? Nothing. There is no support for young people. When you say that, 70 to 78% of the population are young people, but those statistics do not translate in what you're doing, the policies you have. I could say, right now, young people do not make money out of where maybe our parents and grandparents used to look as prestigious jobs. Maybe teaching. As a person, I couldn't want to even go into teaching because I look at it as something that doesn't give me the money I want. And right now, what is giving the billionaires out there, the young people, startups. And these startups are into technovation, they're into climate solutions. And these are things that are helping. Our country, where you have over 12% not having access to electricity, we commend them for the ability of West Nile and all that, but you still do not have 4G, 5G existing in some areas in Uganda. You reach in some parts of Uganda, there is no bar, you're only seeing E. You can't. We're even going far. You have places in Kampala where you do not have anything like internet. And these are the young people you want to compete with others globally. This is the pool of young people that you want to push to be innovative. But there is nothing much that has been done. When you talk about from cliques to progress and we talk about digitalization, the first thing that comes in mind is access and affordability. How many times do you buy an MTN bundle of 2 GB for 5,000 every day? For 3 days.
2 GB, 5 isn't it 1.5 GB?
I think you're not a good customer.
I am, because yesterday I bought data of 10,000. That was 3 GB. It got done in less than an hour.
Oh,
exactly.
God.
And you see that. And you see, those are some of the things that push innovation ahead. Because when you talk about digital, you need to access good network. You're not going to compete with someone in the US who can access 70 MPS, yet here we're struggling to even have 5 MPS to do something about digital to ensure that we tap into the digital revolution that is happening. Look at the digital literacy. How many people know how to use, before we even go into innovations, awareness. Communication and awareness comes from digital literacy. How are we having our digital platforms, Twitter, Instagram? How are we using them to create community awareness? How can we communicate effectively? And these are things that you cannot go down on the grassroots and be able to break down. Because I could tell you, climate change is so abstract. When you look at NEMA saying, oh, we have created awareness, they're using so much abstract language that even a layman who is probably in Kitezi, who is probably in the swamps occupying, cannot even understand what they are saying. And when they come and carry out the forceful evictions of these individuals, oh, we communicated. Where did you communicate? Twitter. How many people access smartphones in Uganda? How many people are interested in what you're saying? And this is what I usually say. The more we don't incentivize our young population, I know Ugandans are some of the most brilliant minds. And I could tell you, all of you here know that you cannot go in a place, a conference, anywhere in the world and you don't find a Ugandan. Like, we are so active to an extent that what we are lacking is our government support. I could mention examples, Augustine, Isaac, Drake, Debbie, all of you, without government support, you're carrying out nation building at no cost, nothing. You don't have any incentive. Now imagine the government created that incentive and said, we are going to allocate this amount of budget to innovations.
And easily accessible,
minimum
bureaucracy. Drake, I think the desire to create is there. In fact,
Yes.
they create. The money is allocated. Denise needs to say the truth. That these people, after allocating the money, it disappears.
Let me tell you, I
They
believe
actually
that
disappear.
that money for allocation for young people is so minimal compared to the population we have. When you look at our budget, where the most money goes into is military. Like, you see very useless things having that. And you don't have any incentive for young people, even when the money is corrupted. I could say PDM. How many of us are going to apply for that PDM? Do you know what PDM is supposed to support? Piggery, wealth creation, let's say. The world is moving on from farming using horse to a digitalized way of farming and creating value addition. And in Uganda, we're still having discussions about what NADS did and the seedlings it corrupted. Yet, we're moving on to innovations and we're supposed to catch up with the rest of the world. So you see the mismatch that exists within policies. If you say PDM,
but I think so that comes down to the issue of our aging government.
Exactly.
You have an average age of a cabinet which is 65 years old.
And the AI task force in this country, even with their PhDs, are above the age where they're supposed to reason for young people. And when we say anything like waste management, you know, there is a friend of mine. They have a startup company that they created specifically for waste management. And within this waste management,
Recycle.
Yes, and then you have also where you scan the bottle. Let's say they partner with Riham, Renzori, Coca-Cola, the most polluters within Uganda, yeah? And they say that if a young Ugandan right now gets a bottle of water and you scan it and you dump it into the dustbin, you get points on your application whatsoever you're having. And those points, you can go into a shop, whether it's Riham, and get any products or claim it and get money. Those are some of the incentives. German, the beer bottles, you go take it back and get money. In Uganda, we are still even struggling to have food waste translated into things like fertilizers. In other countries, food waste is made into fertilizers. You're having it acting as manure. In Uganda, we're still talking about goats, cow dung. Those are things we're still talking about as manure. And the money could be there, but where does it go? It is supporting poultry. It's okay to support such things, but the world has moved on from that kind of wealth creation, and now it needs to be more digitalized and support accessibility and all these things. But no funds. The funds, if they are, have been eaten by the cadres. So it's very problematic.
Let me just bring in Augustine. Augustine, I'm still going to focus on the theme of this year's International Youth Day in relation to what we're discussing, from cliques to progress. It's for us as Ugandans, as young people, it looks like we're moving from cliques to cliques. There's no progress. We are just oscillating on the same pendulum. Like, we can't even get out and, try to make other better strides. If from 1996 today, the conversation in Kitezi has been happening, 1996, 2010, 2015, 2024, clicks to clicks, no progress, no progress. So how can we then move forward with, first of all, what Denise says, incentivizing young people, because they're the greater majority, and you yourself, you are an ambassador of peace, and the conversation around sustainability means the generation that is supposed to take the country forward ought to be equipped and empowered with all the resources necessary for them to propel the country forward. But are we?
Thank you, Drake. First of all, it is actually during this Kitezi incident that I actually realized that the Minister for Disaster Preparedness is youthful, not youth. He's actually youthful. Eh? Yeah. But like Denise has said, we have a lot of potential. How do we get these young people from moving from a level of just having potential to creating meaningful impact is the most important thing. Yeah. Last year in March, 2020 to 2023, we for about 11 months traversed this country. As by that time, I was just a member of a 3-0 club, zero poverty, zero net carbon emission, and so we moved through this country looking for young people and looking for initiatives from our 3-0 club members that can help this the environment. And you can be sure that we got about 30 initiatives in central Uganda, about 40 in eastern Uganda, so many in northern Uganda. And there is one group that actually surprised me, was a 3-0 club of young people in secondary school that actually constructed the Sustainable Earth Library. If you're familiar with climate change, you have interacted with a group. Okay, that group actually won an international prize last year for their initiative. A group of 5 secondary school students constructed a library using plastic bottles. Okay, purely out of plastics. And that is somewhere in the western part of this country. Now, if those kids were able to do that, if those learners were able to do that at their own cost, how would it look if they were actually supported by government in terms of funding or just exposure? Because you see, we struggle a lot doing things alone here. But when there is someone who is able to hold my hand and say, Denise, you're here, I see what you're doing, this is an opportunity for you to showcase, and when you do this, you'll get to this level. And let's assume that's government. That's just what the young people need. There is a group that came from, I think, Makerere or KIU. They called themselves As for Katanga. You know Katanga very well, and you know what is happening there. And if you went to YouTube and just searched the project, our flagship project, Bugaga, you should be able to see a few of these things that I am talking about. There's a group of Kampala University students headed by Jesse Makanga. Now, those people called themselves the Greenland Initiative. We had a group that called themselves the Environment Switch. Now, these are all initiatives that young people have that are under incubation in the minds of the young people that never see light.
Denise
is only lucky that through her own struggles, she has been able to stand out up there. Now, there are so many people like Denise who only need us to tap into their what they are doing. Let us, in terms of technology that you've asked, you see there is nothing now that you can do without technology. Unfortunately, you'll realize that over 30% of this country that is not properly connected to the internet. Yeah. They call it national grid or something. Over 30%.
Nowhere.
And we're talking about where young people actually potentially live. So,
second youngest in the continent. Second time.
In the continent. and even when we have technology and technological tools here, you just confess that you used data of 10,000 yesterday in a blink of an eye. Yeah. I actually thought that was a problem with my phone yesterday. Actually, this entire week I have had to struggle with how I buy internet bundle. And that's why I agreed with Bebe Cool some time ago when he dragged the telecom company. He threatened actually to drag a telecom company into, because, but again, it goes back to the nature of the devices that we have. You see that Denise tells you, you will get into some villages in Mukono, and you are on G throughout the entire time. So your network service provider struggles with looking for network for you. It also somehow the battery also gets drained because you're trying to look for. Before you take a photo of a project that you're running, the battery has decided to. So we need, one, access to some of these things. We also need support to the young people. We need to make these services available. Anybody that is familiar with technology will tell you that the principle of availability is the most important principle in technology. And the other day when I teach ICT in somewhere, and I was teaching electronic waste management, and I was busy thinking of, in fact, I thought I would take them in September to Kitezi for a tour, because they need to because when you get to class and talk to them about waste management, electronic waste, they're like, hey, where is that coming from? Because you see, countries have, serious countries, have moved away from just thinking about waste as human waste, as the plastics, to now understanding that there is electronic waste as well. For majority of our time here on Earth, at least us, those that ended the millennial phase, and those of you, the Gen Zs, because you see, for me, I'm a mzee. I'm a millennial myself. So you know that Africa has been a dumping site for electronic waste. One of the ways of dealing with
maybe for the viewers out there who
waste,
do not know what electronic waste is, you can just briefly.
you see, when you use your phone for some time, that phone reaches a time and when you can no longer use it. At that time, you can decide, or you decide on what to do with it, either to dump it or hand it over to your young brother. At that point, you're talking about waste already. But there are also parts of this phone that you can recover, that you can still reuse. There are those that you can recycle and use them as other products. And then there are those that are spoiled beyond repair. Assuming you are moving in Chikubo, and a H-facey guy grabs your bag and maybe the phone fell down and got broken. There are things that you will never recover from your phone. Such things become electronic waste. Now, those ones are actually a very big contributory factor to some of the environmental problems that we now have. When you hold your old phone and hand it over to your brother, perhaps you're giving it to your brother, which is okay, basically because now the phone gets too hot when you speak for a little bit of time. At that point, the amount of radiations that your phone emits alone is already a threat to the environment.
At that point, I think
unfortunately, very many of us are vulnerable because maybe 80% of us that have started understanding the use of smartphones, we are on UK used, Dubai used. They are dumping them here, and we are comfortable because it is an iPhone X, an iPhone this, or a Samsung this. So, in terms of technology, we need to surely get back to the drawing board. The other day, this government decided that there are cars that they will not allow importation into the country.
But they will still, if you just grease the wheels that are necessary.
But you see, that's for a period of, it will take like 20 years for us to start implementing that kind of law.
No, let me just...
So just like people have talked about, let me just I conclude on this. Just like people have talked about laws on climate change, laws on waste management and all these things. Drake, you and Arinda here are in the profession of law. You might be aware that we have very beautiful laws on waste management. By the way, there is a time in this country, I think this time or this year or late last year, when police went in to enforce a law on waste management, and they said, you know what, if you don't have a dustbin in your car, then better stay home. Now, where did that, how far have we gone with that kind of enforcement? Because I want to believe they were not working without a law. So we have laws. How do we make these laws have some level of strength? Is what is.
How do we give life to it?
How do we? Yes. Exactly.
Debbie, I'm just going to focus on the theme because that is something I think as young people we need to talk about: technology, waste management, and the Kitezi incident. What's your say?
Obviously, a lot needs to be done, and for a lot to be done, obviously, as the youth, we need a platform. Where are we getting that platform? The problem we get in our country is that even when our leaders say we are providing opportunities for the youth, usually, it's mere words. They just give opportunities in words. And I know we may not get opportunities everywhere, but where there is potential, that opportunity should be passed on to the youth. I was amazed when Denise shared the other photo of the AI something. I saw the photo and then I'm like, is AI standing for something else? Because I even zoomed in the people you would see. I was like, this is like an absolute opportunity for the youth. It's even when you're home, when daddy buys a new phone, he gives it to you, like, help me put this, put this. And then the thing is, right now, when they buy a new phone, they're most likely going to give it to my younger brother to do those things. What does that mean? It means that technology gets better with the younger people. So however much you have a PhD in that, like it or not, the younger person, the youth, will always, you know, be able to exercise better the technology. They understand it better. So, and for the youth to, you know, succeed or be enlightened in something, it can never happen without technology. We are in a very digitalized world. The youth are very digitalized themselves. It is very rare, very hard right now to find a youth who is doing something impactful in their lives and they're not relying on the internet. So what does that then mean? It means that technology has to be advanced. Our internet has to be advanced. And the problem is, it's mere words. They keep talking about it, the youth, the youth, the youth. Uganda has so many youths. So what? What are you doing at the end of the day? They are literally doing nothing. And he has said something very important. As years go by, even we are evolving as people, but even the West is evolving. Now we even have electronic West. So how are we going to be able to manage this? If for example, the youth don't have maybe the knowledge or the guidance on how to manage this West, and because actually these gadgets are so much with the youth, it means that they are the ones who even know maybe the impacts. Like I will know that, oh, if my phone heats up after using it for 2 minutes, then, you know, this is what is happening. I, the youth, am the one who has that information. How do I pass it on? I need, obviously, the internet to pass it on. It doesn't stop at the internet. I need the platform. So even these other problems that are coming, even when you try to relate it to the Kitezi incident, it beats my understanding, like, where were these people? When they even try to blame it on the citizens, like, oh, the citizens couldn't, they see that the thing was beyond capacity. Where were you? If you saw that the people are not seeing, what did you do? Did you create the awareness? And the thing is, at the end of the day, they will always say, oh, we told them to leave those places. We told them they're supposed to be 200 meters away. How did you tell them? Your internet is very poor. And then, by the way, it's very true, those people, they usually communicate through Twitter and the like. But how many people are able to access that Twitter you're talking about? You're creating awareness in ways which people cannot access. A lot of money is being allocated in management of those sites. What are you using it for? Because I think the only use I've seen that money do is transporting the West. That is all. Transport the West, dump it there, period. Why don't you spare some time, maybe, you know, the way how people always, when there is a concert, there are those trucks that always move around making noise. If they could also do that, I'm sure, and reach to those people, I'm sure the people would know something that it is happening. So if people keep hearing it as hearsay, they will never know how serious the issue is. And also another thing, when it comes to the individual responsibility in waste management, I would like so much to blame the individuals. But then, better, I come from Kitezi. I know what is really happening there. But you reach a moment and you really see that, oh, this is beyond an individual person. You've brought me a canister where I will be dropping my rubbish. I drop it in there until it is filled up. So what do you expect? I'm not, however clean I am not going to hang on to my rubbish still forever. So at the end of the day, people are forced. I call it forced because I know they have the sense like, oh, I need to be in a clean place, but I do not have where to put this rubbish. I'm not going to hold on to it. So they end up throwing it in maybe the Kahinju River, you're saying. They end up dumping it anywhere. So you find, by the time, when you take that route, by the time you reach Kahinju, when you almost reach in Kitezi, the entire place is smelling. Not because the individuals are dirty, but even the solutions these people have provided are not, you know, they're not managed well. They're not providing the solution they should provide as solutions. Instead, the solutions are becoming problems themselves.
All right, thank you. We have reached the end of our show. So I'll just start with you, Isaac. Closing remarks, but also way forward in just a minute or so.
Well, thank you so much. As we come to the close of this show, there are three things that I will make mention of. One is embracing technology. All of us have talked about it. It's the way to go. Sadly, we can't run away from it. Yeah, it's the way to go. Secondly, to individual responsibility for our environment. Yeah, that in as much as once you understand the kind of person you're dealing with, yeah, they are less responsive until a disaster has happened. Then we as individuals, let's start doing something. Yeah, solid waste accounts for like 7 to 11% of the total waste that we have. So there is the other percentage. People focusing on plastics. That's only just 7%. The other waste is still with us. So if we could do something on the other side too, it would be much better. Thirdly is the youths. Do not give up. This is our country. At the end of the day, it is us. Yeah? It is us. I know, but that is the definition of a revolution. That is the history that we are making. That's a history that we are writing. We must stand. Yeah, today it has not worked, but do it again tomorrow. Keep at it until you do something. Okay. The people in innovation, I mean innovation. Do not give up. Yes, the funds are not there. You're not seeing anything. Things are not adding up. But please keep pushing. Maybe something will show up someday.
Denise.
So it's just the same thing, but more to the government. They need to realize that young people are not just participants. They are not just statistics. They are faces to these statistics. And even when you carry out a census, and you see 70% of the young people and above are young people. Like, turn their ideas, turn their incubation projects, everything into realities, because the potential they have is just untapped. If we tap the potential of young people, you have a likelihood of being the #1 developing country even in this world, because most of the people poached to go to NASA or anywhere else, you're going to hear of Ugandans. They're very brilliant in school, they have brilliant solutions. And the last thing is that climate change is with us, and it's an urgent issue, and we need to tackle it as urgent as possible. If we don't, then we are hitting a dead end where we cannot reverse the effects of the climate crisis. Yeah.
Perfect. Augustine.
Okay, thank you, Drake, and thank you, viewers, for being with us all this while. To the young people out there, like he has said, please don't give up. There is no government that is going to bring peace to your hands, that this is peace. There is no country that is going to think about you. The country is yourself. Think about what you've done to the country, but also don't give up. I want you to all know, dear young people, that what we get from class in schools, all through from nursery to the university, is just 15% of what you need to succeed. The rest of the 85% is in what we call values, morals, and character. Go out there and build a brand for yourself. Don't give up. Use technology tools, advance in them, and understand that your life doesn't stop with Uganda. Extend beyond the boundaries of this country. Create valuable, meaningful friendships out there. And then just things will follow their way. You must know that. And also, don't stop talking, because when we stop talking, we shall start fighting.
Definitely. Deborah.
Okay, thank you. Condolences to the lives that were lost. It is so sad that we had to lose lives to rubbish. Very sad.
Laughable. But
Yeah.
very sad.
Could have been.
Rubbish.
You sit
Yeah.
back in a country and like things that should be claiming
Yeah.
people's lives are like age.
Exactly.
Rubbish.
Yes, and that is why you see those people popularize these ugly pictures of us Africans, because I know this news is so trending more than the beautiful buildings we have. So we really have a long way to go. And big ups to the youths who are trying so hard, creating the projects, involving themselves in those things like climate change, activism, things like that. The struggle continues. We should continue, but also an appeal to the government. Let opportunities for the youth be handed to the youth. If you feel this is an area where youths blossom most, let it be for them. You know, it shouldn't. I know we need the elders to walk through life, but sometimes we've reached an age whereby we are actually the ones guiding the elders. So we need to be given that opportunity where need be. And anyways, we just have to keep fighting, because Uganda only stands because we stand. We don't have to give up. Even if we are trying so hard, we are giving them the rubbish and then they're letting it kill us. We just have to keep, you know, let's keep cleaning, let's keep doing what we're supposed to do as citizens of Uganda, because without us, there's no Uganda at the end of the day.
Thank you. You've heard it from the young people. I'm not going to add much because I've said it all, and it's been a very brilliant show. And condolences still with the families and that have lost their lives in Kitezi incident. Quite a tragedy and very unfortunate. And to Civic Space TV, thank you very much. Center for Constitutional Governance for making this possible. Technical crew, Ronald, Brittany and Paul, thank you very much. And to you, the viewers, continue watching, subscribe. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.